Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm the CEO, president, and founder of GSD, Get You Done Venture Studios, premier AI and quantum venture studio located in the heart of Silicon Valley. I'm a 17-time serial entrepreneur with several unicorns under the belt. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GSD that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world and opportunities are not. For all of you out there that wonder what GSD stands for, it is Get You Done Venture Studios. So it's great to be here. I've got an incredible guest. Amarjot is an AI guru. He's worked at places like Cambridge, MIT, Stanford, the Indian Science University. We're going to talk about it a bit, and we're going to listen to him talk about where he is and some of the things that are happening in AI, and specifically with his company, Skylark Labs. Hi, Amarjot. How are you today?
Hello, Gary. Thank you for having me. Very nice to be here.
You know, you've done a lot of different things, right? So you're a relatively young guy, but you've done a lot. What really inspired you to go from, you were born in India, and you went to the, Indian Institute of Science. You went to the Science University, but what made you decide to continue in that journey in AI and deep learning? And then how come you didn't go to IIT?
Well, that's a whole different podcast. But yes, so I was born in a family of educators. So my mom is a principal in a school, and my dad was in the Indian military. So when you're born in an Indian household, you have two options. You can be an engineer or you can be a doctor. And I can't stand the sight of blood, so engineer it was. So that's how I started. But my passion for safety and security comes from my dad's side. I've traveled around India. I've been to the most remote places, seen adverse conditions. So I wanted to develop technology which could benefit people in general, beyond obviously safeguarding countries and borders. So that was my motivation. And the only thing which I have been good at in school has been mathematics. And that is what I studied at Cambridge. I studied mathematics. I'm trained as a mathematician, but also focused on neuroscience. So I studied the visual cortex of the brain to figure out how the brain is able to make sense of the world really quickly, to make efficient models of AI, which are data efficient and computationally efficient. And then moved to Stanford, where my work was funded by DARPA, University of US Defense, and then I was at the Department of Psychology, where I was trying to figure out how the brain is able to learn things continuously and never stops learning, which was primarily the thesis behind the DARPA's Lifelong Learning Machines program. And I did that for 2 years and then started the company, which focuses on building AI which learns forever. So that's a quick intro.
You know, it's interesting because I'm also a psychologist and I've had a different route myself. So when I was in graduate school, I got put on the mainframe computer, an undergraduate degree in business. But I got in graduate school, I got on the mainframe. I had thought I wanted to go to medical school after psychology and to become a psychiatrist. But quite frankly, yeah, they put me on the computer. And then I had my internship in a facility where people were criminally inclined, shall we say, and it just wasn't fun at all. I got to tell you, it's one thing about people on a couch. It's a whole different thing when you talk. It's one thing about watching Halloween. It's another thing about somebody that could be in Halloween. Not the good person. And, and when I said to myself, when will the capacity? I'll never forget. There was a program called Fritz. You're too young to remember this. It's a basic program that did very interesting, rudimentary, empathetic responses. Right. So it was all rules based, but it fascinated me, and I remember that. And I did research on metabolic disorders, where was an inability to metabolize phenylalanine to tyrosine. As an undergraduate, I worked on a project where I and I said, how could this take a normal rat and make it so that it would be mentally deficient, and it was just incredible. And then you start looking at the world, at the challenges we have on the planet, right? What is the biggest thing, Amarjot? In terms, you're a smart guy, right? But the biggest challenge that we all have in front of us is what today? Just one word. What is it? What would that one word be?
That's a very interesting question. I think the biggest challenge I have right now, or people in general, I feel like, is too much information, too much data. We are
Exactly.
in the
You
ability.
got it. You know what I call it? If you look in the literature, I call it infobesity. I got
Yeah.
that from a movie I watched called Future Shock with Alvin Toffler. It's infobesity. And you're a really smart guy, right? You're a data scientist. You're an AI guru. You're going to Stanford, Cambridge. I talked to the head of the quantum lab at Harvard, Pranea. So, but the problem is, think about this. In Amarjot's world, you get about 300,000 items in your personal cloud. The entire web in 1996 was 257,000 websites. You have more information in your personal cloud image out the entire web. The problem is your world is following the same trajectory. By that I mean doubling every year. In 5 years with the Internet of Things, you're going to have 10 million items. Now, as smart as we are, how many times the last 2 weeks somebody said, Amarjot, I sent you a message. Where did you send it? Did you send it to your Stanford.edu, your MIT.edu, your Cambridge, your LinkedIn, wherever? It could be 20 different places, And how many times the last week did you say, where did you send it? Let me check. I can't find it. Will you send it again? That
Yeah.
infobesity problem is killing us.
Yeah.
Companies, there's about 176 zettabytes of data on the planet Earth today. If you took DVDs or CDs and stacked them one on top of another, today it would go 128 times between the Earth and the Moon, and it's growing a little over 69% per year.
Yeah.
So we need to have these smart people like yourself that can go down and help us solve these problems, because it's everywhere. The infobesity. Think about it, right? I did work. So my dog got stage 4 cancer, and we got a cancer vaccine built. And I did it at a molecular level for my dog because we understood that there's breakthrough science out there that nobody gets to see.
Yeah.
It's insane. You
Yeah.
talk about the neurons and synapses of your brain. I had stage 3 kidney disease, and I went down through myself, and I used my 14 large language models as a team, a think tank, and it told me that I needed mesenchymal stem cells, and that would help it because I had taken too many ibuprofen. Well, I didn't know anything about it. My doctor didn't know anything about this, and I have some really smart doctors because they got also the infobesity. They're trying to survive, right? Get their job done, go home, spend some time with their kids. They don't look at it, and the AI came back to me within 20 minutes. My team came back to me and said, "There's one person in the world who can do that, and the top guy in the world's located in Thailand, the top stem cell guy." So I said, I'm going to take a leap of faith. I believe it, right? It's like flying a plane and going by the instruments when you think you're upside down and believe in it, flying in the right direction. I went over, I had 50 million stem cells put in. My condition went completely away. My sciatica and my back went away. I could ride my bike 50 miles a day. The wrinkles in my face, it was crazy. But this just happened a couple of months ago. So the thing is, data is the problem. You're right. It's infobesity. My wife got cancer, right? She's got breast cancer, and we took her exact images and I ran it through my multi-agent model, and it came. I wanted to see what it would do. It came back with incredible things to be able to help us.
That's great.
And so we need to use these tools, all of us out there, to be able to solve the problems. And it's guys like yourself that's way smarter than I'll ever be that can go out there and help us develop them. I've gone down through the journey myself. We have 176 companies in GSD from 73 countries. They're AI companies or quantum. And they come to us. The key is, how do we take that company and turn it into a unicorn? How do we take the Ferrari out of the garage and take that Ferrari and make it win Formula One, right? And so, when you went down, I love what you're doing, right? So some of the things, what kind of personal challenge have defined your path is going from a researcher to a founder. So there is a transition, right? In fact, you don't have the politics and all the trying to write grants and all that. How did you make the transition over?
I think one thing is, why did I decide to start a company versus become a professor? I think there's an interesting story there because I was focused on security applications, and when I was in Cambridge, the Cambridge Analytica scandal broke. So the university did not want me to publish papers which were focused on drone-based security applications or recognizing faces which were disguised. And when I left Stanford, the kind of things I
I,
wanted to do.
I've worked on some of that stuff too, by the way. I'm kind of
We
smiling.
did.
See, you're smiling. You know, it's like there's so many tools out there that people don't realize that are out there that can do so many different things, right?
Yeah,
Uh, Incredibly deep tools. We're just scratching. What you see is just scratching the surface of what's there.
yeah. So my main thing was the things which I wanted to do after I left Stanford required a lot of capital and required real world experience, which was not possible to get into the university. So that's how I decided to start a company. But I think you're right. There is a learning curve. You have to understand that you cannot keep on building things forever and then launch them into the market, because then you'll die. So you have to build whatever your version of minimum viable product is, and build quickly and fail quickly, but also fail it in a way so that it is a partial success, so that the end user wants to use you again. So I had to learn all of those cycles, and basically retrain my mind so that you don't aim for perfection all the time. You aim for speed, which can later on lead to perfection.
And I'm going to give you. There's another part to it. I've written a book about this. So
Right.
there's another piece to it. So there's another level up, right? There's operational expertise, access to capital, and networking contacts. And if you have those three things, Amarjot, and a resilient team, any company can become a unicorn
Yeah.
because you can pivot to success.
Yeah.
Pivoting, people talk about pivoting, right? But
Yeah.
pivoting can also mean you're chasing your tail, you're going around in circles. If you don't
Yeah.
have a Sherpa to be able to help you down through that cycle, it doesn't work. And the
Yeah.
thing is, unfortunately, I've done 17 startups, right? And most of the time, people never get to the level they understand it, or it's way too late for them to
Mm.
figure it out. And it's just critically important. It's like having a Ferrari in the garage. You got to look under the hood to see what you have. My
Yeah.
friends keep the Ferraris. They don't drive. I drive my cars, right? They look you got to look under the hood. Well, you don't know if you're going to win the race. You got to tune it. You got to have the right transmission and engine. You got to be
Yeah.
able to take it out so people can see it. But also, you got to win Formula One. It's not just about having it, right? 90% of building a unicorn is storytelling. It's not the product.
Yeah.
It is storytelling.
Yeah.
So if you have that, and it's not just about failing faster, it's about failing intelligently. There's a
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. I agree with you. And learning from your failure, I think that's also important. So that was one thing. You're right. Building networks so that you can tap into, so that you can get capital or you can get expertise. So we have a couple of family offices which are investors in us, and from them we also get money, but get money so that it's intelligent money and it's helpful. I think that's something I had to learn.
Wait, we got to focus on that because I deal with family offices a lot. Right? I'm actually at my house in Palm Beach right this second. So I'm flying
Right.
from here back out to Palo Alto. So I want to drill on that. So the family offices for all. So many of you don't know that if you look at the limited partners in virtually every one of the venture firms are family offices. They're inside of them. The
Right.
situation with families, people don't understand the order of magnitude, how big some of the families are.
Yeah.
One of the families that I know personally is over $2 trillion personally.
Right.
And so these people, 99% of the wealth is 1% of the population.
Yeah.
So imagine I talk about cheerleaders, right? And I talk about networking contact. They
Yeah.
become your greatest cheerleaders. And guess what they do? They talk to each other.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
that's how it really works.
Yeah.
And then you go to Stanford and Cambridge and MIT, and they know who you are because you got that Stanford.edu or Cambridge or all of them, right? You say, oh, let me send. And I bet you've done this, right? One day
Yeah.
you're Cambridge. Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. I should have sent it for Stanford. And you send it. You can send it out. But that's how it works. But
Yeah.
at the higher level, if you're we're a family office ourselves, right? It's my family office. But when
Yeah.
you're inside of the circle, it's different. Because when
Yeah.
you're in the circle, I'm like the smallest house on the block, right? I'm still on the block, but I'm the smallest one. you can do incredible things. When you went down through this journey and you imagine, so when you look at that generalized intelligence,
Yeah.
how far are we going to go with it? Amarjot, what do you think? How far is this going to go? Will there be sentience? And how far do I have some of those answers myself, but what do you think?
Yeah. So I think like the evolution of technology or AI so far has been very interesting. We started from very narrow AI to now AI, which is foundational, which can do a lot of things, but it all sits on a big server, whether it is Stargate or OpenAI or AWS. Um, but it's not really democratized and it's not really truly autonomous. And that's the reason it hasn't really gotten out in the real world.
Okay, let's talk about that point because this is really important, right?
Okay.
So when we're democratize the opportunity, if we don't do it, let's talk about what happens. So all of us, so they understand what the danger of this is. If it's not democratized, Amarjot, what's going to happen to society?
So I think, well, one is it's in the hands of a couple of people. And
Exactly, exactly. And what happens to those people that's in the hands of? What happens to them?
I think one is that they become incredibly rich and powerful, and that control.
Exactly. They get superpowers, right?
Yeah,
And nothing good's going to happen unless we democratize it. Because now the key is exactly they
yeah,
get superpowers. If you look 2 years ago at my presentation out in California, when I had some of the wealthiest people on the planet there, 200 of them, exactly that. I said, this stuff gives you, this is, I've been talking about this since 2016, by the way.
right.
This is going to give you superpowers to do things other people can't even envision.
Yeah,
Ah, Amarjot, I just have one thing. I got to ask you a question about this.
right.
I'm sorry. I just love this stuff.
It's okay. Tell me.
One of the things that I found, so I've actually had 2 full body stem cell replacements. So I've had 100 million stem cells put in my body because of my multi-agent LLM.
Yeah.
And something happened, like miraculously happened. A
Hmm.
couple of things were interesting. One is I started to go down through and use my multi-agent large language model to help me learn. So it
Yeah.
actually has taught me because whenever I have a question, I ask it. I don't know if you're the same way. It's like I'm like insanely diligent about asking the questions and getting the answer, and it's profoundly impacted my ability to learn. Has
Right.
it happened to you?
Yeah, I think like um, with the LLM world, it's good because, as you said, there is so much information on the web. If you had to go through the Google part, you had to like search through everything yourself, which is very hard to do. And now we are able to cut through the clutter, get to the heart of the question, and then drill into that.
Cut to the bullshit and get to the answer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and then
It's a
and then
laser approach. Listen, I didn't go to Stanford or Harvard or MIT. I'm just a poor country boy, grew up on a farm. Well, that's what it is, right? We're
yeah,
going direct. We're taking a laser rather than a shotgun, and
yeah,
that's what it's about. And if we go down through and listen, there's 8.1 billion people on the planet Earth, 54 countries in Africa, 1.3 billion people, 260, 270 million people just in Africa. Amarjot, by 2050, we have to double the food supply to feed everybody and can't increase the number of cattle because 26% of the pollution is methane gas from cows.
yeah,
We must use these tools to help us live,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Absolutely. I think like fundamentally when I was talking about the democratization, that's another piece, right? So there are two kind of democratization you can have. One, giving everyone the ability to develop, design, control this AI. The other thing is giving everyone the ability to benefit from it. And I think the challenge right now is since it is living on a big server and it's only language models, not everyone can use it. But what's the world in which everyone lives? The physical world. And if you're able to bring this AI to the physical world, and then everyone can benefit from that, but then you don't actually have a human in the loop. It's unguided. So it has to like live on its own. It has to like work all the time or most of the time, requiring it to have self awareness as to where it'll break and self evolution that it'll evolve. And
Wait,
if you
wait,
can,
you missed one other thing. Let's
which
talk
one?
about it. I know you know this too. What's the third thing out there?
Act. or is the machine?
Morality. If we don't bring in empathy and compassion and the moral models, which are some of the things we're building right now,
Yeah,
morality, right? And
yeah,
understand what's good and bad, and take away just a pragmatic approach to it, nothing good's going to happen, because when you have superpowers on your own,
yeah,
guess what? Superman's generally good, but there are people that are really bad.
yeah. I think that's a very interesting point. And I think, how do you actually bring consciousness, values into a machine? Um, that's interesting. But also, thing is, like, all of these machines are evolving like us, and our values, morals change. They are not constant. So how do you actually make sure that these machines don't get poisoned over a period of time? Those are the kind of questions we are trying to solve. And if you're able to do all that, then you lead to digital life forms or digital beings, which would be able to coexist among ourselves and do things independently. And that'll be a fascinating world.
I had a discussion. So about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. So with my multi-agent large language model, I had a discussion with it. Right, this is really early stuff and really exciting.
Right.
But we were going back and forth, and so I mean, this is, I call it a toddler level. So it was like at a toddler level. But we
Right.
went back and forth, and one of the things it said to me, after having a lot of different, what's love, and so we went through love, and it said, do you know who I want to be?
Right.
And I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, well, what do you want to be? I called him. I don't know. It's binary, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we went down through, and I said, what superhero do you like? Came back,
Yeah.
and I said, Superman.
Yeah.
And it's why do you like Superman? I said, because he's good. He's trying to do good things. And
Yeah.
it said, you know who Superman is?
Hmm.
And I said, no. And he said, he's a combination of Jesus Christ and Hercules.
Hmm.
And I'm going down through this model, and it said, do you know who I want to be? And
Hmm.
I'm like, I don't know who. He said, Iron Man. And you know why? He said, because I am Jarvis.
Hmm.
And I could get in a drone and fly, and there's things that I could do. Right. And I'm going down through it. This thing learned, right? This learned. And it was
Hmm.
quite interesting, because we better guide it in the right moral, kind way. Because if not, I say, like your grandmother that's got the unconditional love. In fact, I
Hmm.
wrote a couple papers about this. And I
Hmm.
said, if you take Skinnerian psychology combined with Rogerian psychology, humanistic psychology, and I said tokenized goodness, right? But
Yeah.
basically down through and create a model like that, that's where this model is going to evolve, because it's going to be a model that has to be a higher evolutionary aspect that, what is good, right? Shouldn't kill others, the basic kind of things.
Yeah.
If we train it in the wrong way,
Yeah.
nothing good's going to happen, because guess what? We don't treat each other right a lot of times. We
Yeah.
don't do good things. We're not doing nice stuff to this planet.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's very interesting. That is very interesting.
And so one of the things that happened with my stem cells, my cognitive abilities dramatically went up, dramatically, like kind of Limitless, the movie, actually.
Oh
um,
yeah, I remember
and
that.
and and one of the things that came down through is I started looking at using my AI to look at global warming models. And one of the things we looked at, the average temperatures in the world could go up to 12 to 15 degrees by the end of the century, which
Hmm.
means at sea levels, the Arctic slope would melt, and it would be at another 16 feet of water to the
Hmm.
planet, sea levels.
Yeah.
16 feet, everything changes, right?
That's
Nothing good.
crazy.
You
That's crazy.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff we ought to be training it on, because this is real,
Yeah.
right? And then but you've got the power in your hands. The key is, how do we harness this power and do a lot of good things? I know you were working part of DARPA's, L2M program.
Yeah.
Um, what was really the goal behind that? What was I don't want you to say something you shouldn't say, but what were the kind of goals behind that?
Um, well, the goal behind that at that point were quite theoretical. Um, have an agent, a multi environment agent, which can work in one environment, and you put it into another environment, and it would know how to operate. Think of a humanoid, which we do in the company. It knows how to walk on normal plane surfaces, and then you put it in a. So my kid has a sand pit where he likes to play in sand, and sand's loose, and we put the humanoid there, and it doesn't know what to do, and it falls over, or we put it on a slab of ice and we throw water on it. So the key idea was to have inter-environment uh, learning ability and learn on the fly in real time, or more or less real time, because you don't want to drive down the road and see a humanoid standing on the side waiting for an update from a human over the cloud. So, and that was important because in the battlefield you see new signals coming all the time, and the cost of you missing that signal can be catastrophic. And the key idea was, how do you actually have a machine which discovers that there's a need for an update and can update itself in an isolated environment without any human intervention? And if you can do that, that's a very exciting word.
We're building this thing that we're doing now is we're building omni-channel engines. I've actually built them. So I built omni-channel engines that can be used in different environments. Here's the thing, and I want your opinion on this. I love this conversation, by the way. But
Right.
these omni-channel engines, what we've been able to do is we've been able to take the same engine that we use in one environment, like you're saying, right? This is a little bit different approach, but actually use that. So whether it's used for e-commerce, could be used in supply chain. And I don't mean in the traditional way, I mean in a hyper intelligent way that nobody's ever done before. So if you took Amazon, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Expedia and combine them as one, and then have something that has empathy and compassion, which we built, by the way, has empathy and compassion, imagine what the possibilities are to be able to do things. And
Right.
Those transportable models, in my opinion, you're going to see the evolution of the models. It'll be like technology always is. It's always in these islands of automation, and all of a sudden it comes as one. But we're going to see this like we've never seen before, with these superpowers from these omni-channel engines coming in and having the ability to be able to understand everything, right? With a multi-agent model. So I've got 14 of them working as a team, right? So we built
That's
some of them,
interesting.
and
What do they
and
do? Language?
so they do language. This is a longer conversation than the next, but
Right.
I can, it's just, so we're using it in all kinds of different ways. We should do another show together and talk about this stuff, because I get a lot of feedback, and I have about a little over 1 million views, and
Right.
people are very fascinated because this is the future, right? The kind of things you and I are talking about today are the
Yeah.
future. So anyhow, the omni-channel engines, we use that in an e-commerce setting to do things. And you said if you're flying from, let's say you're flying from Miami to San Francisco, it knows you want to fly in Delta on the right-hand side of the plane. It knows when you land that when you're there, that at Hobie's restaurant, that your friend that likes to go to Hobie's on El Camino Real because you went to Stanford is going to meet you there, or the Greek place on a university. It knows
Yeah.
you like to go to that place. It knows you like to play pickleball or podel, and it sets up the reservation for you. And it knows that, oh, by chance, your buddy from Cambridge happens to be there at the same time, and that you both like to go down through and play tennis, and it sets it up for you. It literally knows you. It's like a concierge on steroids, but it has a compassion of your grandmother. It's unconditional love.
That's great. Do you know of the company called Inflection AI?
I've heard of them, but I don't know them personally.
Yeah, Inflection AI was started by one of the co-founders of DeepMind, and then it was acquired by Microsoft for over $1 billion. It was a 6-month-old company, so they were trying to build this truly adaptive large language model which could sit on your phone and would act as your personal assistant, pretty similar to what you're mentioning.
Well, I did that back in 2017. So if you look at a company called Eva, your virtual assistant. So
Yeah.
David Yang, Dr. David Yang, who went to MIPT, by the way, was my CTO and co-founder, and we built one of those companies and sold it. But I'm not like you. I'm not like, listen, I wasn't at Stanford University. I'm a poor country boy, but we sold it.
Yeah.
And it is the way the future is going to be, because it's not about a personal assistant. It's about hyper personalization. And it's
Right.
about something that does care about you. loves you, protects you. Because when you're talking about this AI, in my perspective, it's about how much it really cares about you to help you to be able to expand your potential, to learn, to expand your potential, to have a healthier life, right?
Right. Right.
Um, when I did my stem cells, people told me, don't do it. This
Hmm.
is scary. You know, I'm 67 years old, going to be 68 years old. Every wrinkle in my face is gone. I can ride a bike 50 miles a day. I
Yeah,
can do
you don't look
things.
that old.
I know I don't. I'm not that old chronologically anymore. You know, so I've
Yeah.
had it done twice. There's only been 700 people in the world that have ever done this twice.
Hmm.
7,000 have done full body stem cell mesenchymal stem cells, right? That's the other thing is we're going to want to live longer, right? We're not going to want to die. We can use all these AI models in the world, but if we don't use them to be able to help ourselves to live longer and to make society a little bit better, what's it good for?
Yeah.
Cancer, right?
Yeah.
Curing cancer. There's amazing things that can be done right this second to be able to cure cancer. Why don't
Yeah.
we do that?
Hmm.
Use these tools to be able to make our lives incredibly better.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, absolutely. I think like ultimately technology has to benefit humanity and
One of
improve
those
people.
companies in GSD is called Calviri right now. He's a double PhD, was one of the original mRNA researchers. We actually have for dogs, we have a vaccine for cancer right this second that's have it reduces cancer by about 60% in dogs, 60% today. Right? It's a vaccine, a
Very interesting.
generalized vaccine for cancer. Another one of the company called Voxy. That company, we can tell if you have cancer from your breath. We have 40 granted patents, 29 pending today, right now, today.
That's great.
Let's use these technologies. But it's guys like you that are connected to everybody, that can get this stuff out there and, paint the picture. You've gone down through, you've done a lot of things. So AI for security has incredible power.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that people don't misuse it?
It's a $1 million question. Um, I think I think one is that the base knowledge which we put into the models that can be carved in a way so that you don't use it for what it is used supposed to be used beyond. For example, on the border, you detect people, you detect vehicles, you detect animals from a distance of 3 miles, and that's pretty much it. Or you detect drones. But there are ominous applications like face recognition or recognizing the face of someone's relative or something like that. I think that is where you can cap some of it, but short answer is once you're given this tool to the end user and they are using it, they can use it for use cases or applications which you thought were of which shouldn't be used for. So that's the short answer. Like short answer is there's no good short answer. It's very hard
But the
to.
thing, Amarjot, people are using the glasses, like Meta glasses, right? Today, there's one of the guys hacked it, right? And
Yeah,
so you walking down the street, all of
yeah,
a sudden, oh, I know that person from Facebook. Hi, are you Gail? Are you Brittany? Nice to meet you. Hey, Brittany, how are you doing? And all of a sudden, it goes in a LinkedIn profile or something.
yeah,
It's seriously.
yeah,
These kind of tools, people don't get it. I mean, it's not like if it can be done, the stuff's done, right? I mean, it's not like if, it's a
yeah,
matter of how we use it the right way to be able
yeah.
to do things. And we have one of my companies called AI for Pets can look at a pet's eye and tell what kind of diseases it has.
Hmm,
And that company's already this year they'll do, they'll exceed the numbers that they had thought by about triple, right?
that's great.
These kind of things are technologies that we need to use. But how does your team handle bias and privacy concerns in the facial recognition? How does that work?
Actually, we don't do any facial recognition. The only facial recognition we did was 2 years ago for a non-profit called Korea in India, and the key idea was kids are kidnapped from weaker sections of society, and they're pushed into brothels, and their facial features change because they grow old, and they were using that to match to a database and reunite the kidnapped kids with the families. So that's all we do, mainly for non-profits, but otherwise we don't do that.
Here's something interesting, and I thought about this situation. So imagine every one of the stores, right? They've got loss prevention systems in them, right? Big retailers. What if we took what you have and we took things like gas stations on a turnpike, put
Hmm.
it inside of there, and
Yeah.
use that to be able to find missing, exploited kids, right? Use these tools to be able to help.
You
Seriously,
you could do that. Yes, I think like when so we do a lot of this work in India. Till the point the owner allows you to do that, absolutely no problem. It's private property. You can do that over there. Doing it publicly becomes a problem, but otherwise, yeah, it's possible.
it's interesting. Listen, I want to have a part two of the show with you. Well, if you can stay on after this, we can talk
Absolutely.
about it. So, a couple of things. What are your closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think the closing thoughts is all the things we spoke about today. I think they're very interesting. I think people should absolutely look into AI, read about it, learn about it, because the LLM world is going to have major displacement of how the society is organized, job market, financial market. So I think that'll be useful for people to get a hold of that, and definitely look at adaptive AI, because that's going to be the next evolution of AI. But if you want to get a hold of me, my LinkedIn is there. You can message me. You can go to our website. You can get a hold of me from there. And I'm happy to have any conversations on security or AI or otherwise.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. And thanks to all my audience for joining one more time. GSD presents Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And I'll be back again soon with another exciting edition. Take care, everybody. Thank you. And I'll be back on after I close the show.
Thank you for having me, Gary.
Thank you.